Hello, you are watching the Pure Passion Biz Podcast with Akua Hinds, and I am your host, Akua Hinds. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Today, I have the joy of introducing Kathya Siewrattan to you. Kathya is a realtor who works in the Greater Toronto area. She is a residential and commercial realtor. And what she does through her business is she analyzes people's wants and goals and helps them to understand their realistic capabilities. She's been working at this for 12 years now, and there's so many great nuggets of information that Kathya has to share. And we talked about that beforehand. So I'm really excited to introduce you to Kathya. Kathya, so glad to have you on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. Well, looks can be deceiving. And you probably know that based on your history of working in a bank, because you did work in a bank before, some people look like they have it all material wise, but in reality, they are struggling with debt. Do you think that people succumb to acquiring debt because of internal and outside pressure to live a certain lifestyle?
I mean, I totally believe that. I don't want to say I speak for the masses or anything, but when I just look at like the general population and everything I've seen throughout the years. I started off after I graduated from school, I started off as a teller in the bank. And I used to see a lot of really interesting things because, when you're looking at someone's bank account and their bank history, it really tells you a lot about the person and their lifestyle, right? And then, you see the person standing in front of you. And it's really interesting because sometimes you see someone and they're so fancy looking, but they have like $2 in their bank account, paycheck to paycheck. And then sometimes you see someone and you think, wow, that person is like, just average or like whatever. And they have like 200K in their paycheck, in their bank account. You know what I mean?
Right.
But what I've noticed is that from going from there and then doing like real estate and mortgages, is that a lot of people live beyond their means, right? And what they end up doing is they have a line of credit on their house, or they, spend and then they end up acquiring like 100K in credit card debt and end up refinancing their house to pay off the credit card debt. So instead of like growing financially, they're just taking that growth and using it to pay off credit card debt. And yeah, credit card debt I just see as a huge, huge problem because once you get stuck in that rut, then that's what it is. And then sometimes they say too, like you see a pair of shoes on sale and then you take your credit card to go and use it, right? And then you don't pay off your credit card right away and you let that interest accumulate. You're actually paying like 3 times more for the pair of shoes, you know?
Very true. We talked before about how debt can be considered the new form of slavery. Um,
Mhm.
can you tell me what your thoughts are about that?
I feel like, and this is, controversial because, you're speaking out against like capitalism, but they give people and they offer people debt and people, end up getting that little inkling in their feel, they just want that thing or they need it now, right? And then they go put it on their credit card. And just from like I see lease applications, I see like all these things. And then you see people like they're carrying like the smallest balance, like $1,000 balance with late payments, damaging their credit for what? For no reason, right? When they're fully have the capability of not doing that. But most people, when they get themselves into that cycle of debt that keeps growing and they're only paying off their minimum payments, like I've seen it start at the beginning of that small debt cycle and then go to the point where like people are $120,000 in credit card debt or loans, and then they're so desperate that they have to go to like cash money to get a quick loan to like pay off this little. And you wouldn't you would see like the fanciest person driving in a Benz, and that is their lifestyle, and you have no idea, you know?
I think that's very true. And I know you said they give people these loans. I'm assuming you're talking about the banks.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I think that there are many people who get into debt for various reasons. I mean, sometimes it is buying things that they don't necessarily need or living beyond their means. Sometimes it has to do with other reasons like medical debt.
Hmm.
Or maybe they made some investments into their businesses that they hoped would pan out, but it didn't really pan out the way that they'd hoped.
Hmm.
So there are all kinds of different reasons as to why people get into debt. It's very interesting hearing your perspective as somebody who used to work in a bank and has seen the person in front of them looking very different than the bank balance, the bank account balance. Oftentimes, when people are in debt, they feel trapped and they see no way of improving their financial situation. So, how do you help people to see that there is a solution?
Um, Personally, I give them hope because I just tell them a bunch of stories about, people I've seen and known. I work very closely with this company and they help people coach through that. So that's why I get firsthand experience. Um, I believe it's just budgeting and being mindful of what you're spending your money on. Like, you know, not just thinking that you have an unlimited amount of money. Also, I see people be absolutely ridiculous and put like a Louis Vuitton bag on a credit card and don't have the salary to support that. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Right.
So, yeah.
Yes, that is something that I think people need to consider because I've always seen credit cards as tools. So a credit card is a tool to help you, and it really should be treated like a savings account if you have the right type of credit card, in my opinion. Because if you have a cashback credit card or a travel rewards credit card and you use the credit card regularly, wherever your credit card can be accepted, instead of using cash, use your credit card, but you pay the card every month in full, then you won't be racking up those interest charges, right? What you'll be getting instead are cashback rewards and travel rewards. But not everybody sees a credit card quite that way. They don't. I had a friend who told me that when she was in university, and I remember when I was in college, and there were these booths everywhere, and it was the same for my friend. Encouraging students to apply for student credit cards.
Mhm.
And she said that when she first got credit cards, she saw credit cards as free money.
Mhm.
And that's why, that's a big reason why she got into debt and had some financial difficulties later on. She was able to work her way out of that, but still, I think that there are people out there who don't see credit cards the way that they're really supposed to be viewed. Um, and it's good that you are helping people to see that there is a solution, getting out of debt, and hopefully a solution to changing their views about credit cards and seeing them not as evil or as traps, but as tools when used correctly. Um,
So
the, Mhm.
I was actually discussing this podcast with someone and we were talking about like how we would say debt is the new age slavery. But just to edify the point that you just spoke, um, it is lack of education, is, because yes, you can use debt in a good way as a tool to like further elevate yourself, or, if you don't use it properly and don't use it responsibly, then you get yourself into a hole. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree. I agree. Many people feel embarrassed to reach out to financial professionals for help fixing their debt. I mean, what are some myths that you think that people have about financial difficulty?
I think the first thing is a lot of people think they know everything, so like say I meet someone and they want to apply for something and their credit's like and I'm like, like this isn't great for your application, let's try and work on this. And then they'll say, yeah, I know you have to do this and this and this. And then I'll talk to that same person a year later and they're still in the same situation.
Mm.
you know so I don't know what you would categorize that down to in one word. I think that it would just be, a lack of knowledge, a lack of, I don't know. You know what I mean? Where people think they know everything, and in fact, it's like a limited scope, or they're not even taking action on what they know. So that's one thing. Another thing that I think is that people just think, okay, I have this much money and then I have like this much debt, so I'm just gonna pay this much like this, right? But if you, speak to the right people or get the right counseling, there's ways that you can figure out how to kind of pay everything off a little bit faster. You know what I mean? Like some of those books you read where you pay the highest interest one out first and then only pay the minimum on like, another one. Like different strategies where you can move your money around to make it easier for you. So that's another myth because people just think it's like I make money and I just pay my bills, but there's loopholes in everything, right? And then I
Yeah.
think the like another myth would just be like lack of foresight, because like if somebody has a limiting belief and they don't think anything else is possible, or they don't think, hey, I can find a solution, then they'll just stay in that, bubble, you know?
I I definitely think that what you're saying is true. I think that there are many people who feel trapped by debt and feel paralyzed by those thoughts. And because they feel so unsure what to do, they don't take action. They don't have a sense of urgency. I mean, we can look at what we've all been through since late 2019, early 2020, when the world shut down. And uh, we all went through the pandemic, which we're all still, I mean, the pandemic is still ongoing, really. Of course, things have gotten better. We have vaccines and all of that, but nobody anticipated that. Well, very few people did. And so I think, if anything, we should take a look at that situation and realize that the sense of urgency has to be there in terms of building a nest egg or starting something, doing anything to chip away at whatever debts are there, even if it's small, because you never know when things are going to just change, in the blink of an eye again.
Mhm.
And it is true that there are a lot of different things to consider. Um, and each situation is different, of course. But having a better relationship with money is something that I think a lot of people need to develop, because let's face it, a lot of money matters just are not taught in school.
Yeah.
They just aren't. And so having the education, reaching out to financial professionals, and just really cultivating a realistic and a joyful relationship with money. Money is not, in my opinion, money is not the root of all evil. It
Mhm.
really isn't. And yet, many were raised believing that it's impolite to talk about money, that it's wrong to have a lot of money, and that people who have a lot of money live a certain way. And it's really it's more complex than that. But cultivating a good relationship with money, I think, is very important to do. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think the relationship with money is connected to the way people treat money?
I mean, like when you talk about education and the lack of education, especially in school, I mean, your relationship with money would be your relationship with anything else. Like, say you had a gym routine, right? You
Right.
have to learn about your muscles. You have to learn about your diet. You have to learn about when you're going to do your exercises, when you're going to rest, when you're going to do this, you know what I mean? So in anything that you're going to get good at, you have to like set out some guidelines, put some action items into place and execute. And you know what I mean? So it's just like using an agenda to like, prioritize your tasks. It's that's what your relationship with money is. It's just another thing that you just, get good at figuring out how to maneuver.
That's right. And it does take practice to learn how to manage it. But once the practice is put in there, or once a formula has been set up and you follow that formula, it becomes a lot easier and it comes through for you in the end. So what are your top three tips for budgeting?
I would say the first thing is like have all your monthly expenses in a spreadsheet or something, just so you know, okay, this is what I'm spending a month. And then know what you're spending on groceries, entertainment, blah, 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 and that's it, right? I think another thing that drains people's bank accounts are impulse purchases. So, like for me, I was like, when I'm going anywhere or when I'm buying anything, it's like list, this is what I'm buying and that's it. You know what I mean? Don't like put extra stuff. I mean, like once in a while it's fine, but like it's planning, right?
Right. So you put boundaries in place and you basically you draw a line in the sand and you decide, okay, that I'm going to stay within this boundary of spending.
Yeah. And then, say there is something that you would like to purchase, right? Like you plan for it. So you put
Right.
aside or like save a little bit, take a little bit from the entertainment fund and put it in the like whatever fund. So just, planning. It's just like you're planning your meals for the week. You know what I mean? You're planning where your money is going and how. So it's like, it's really like a lifestyle.
No, no,
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, can you please, share a true life story of someone who's bounced back from debt and developed a very healthy relationship with money?
Okay. I have a great story. It
Okay.
has to do with the people who do the credit coaching. So there was a lady, she was Filipino. She had come to the Philippines she had come to Canada from the Philippines. And she had a sister, and they were both like, they had families, but they were sending money back to the Philippines. And then they were also giving like $500 a month to their church, right?
Okay.
And when we had met this lady, she had three jobs and, like hardly any money for anything to buy like McDonald's to eat in between her jobs or whatever. And, I remember because we have seminars on Saturday mornings at 10.
Okay.
And I remember that time I met her, she had like finished her third job and she slept in the McDonald's close to the place to come to the seminar at 10 a.m. about like fixing her credit and getting out of debt and stuff, right? Anyways, so yeah, like a hectic lifestyle. Like people live like this in the GTA, right? Um,
Right.
because at this point she's like crazy in credit card debt, still sending money to the Philippines, sending money to her church, which like $500 is a bit ridiculous for someone who's working three jobs to. And just kind of like that's the slavery that I'm talking about, right? And anyways, a year later, all her debt was paid off, right?
Right.
And she had like savings. So every month she would put a little bit of money away. And she said it was like the first time in her life she ever had like extra cash just kind of laying around in case.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
really powerful. Now, a year later, was that same lady still working the three jobs, or was she able to eliminate one of the jobs?
She's still working the three jobs because, she's like trying to allocate money now. Because basically, we like take people out of debt, get them into real estate, and then turn them into investors. That's like our whole goal so that they could, like, it's elevation, right? So at this point now, her and her sister are like saving to buy a house for their family.
In the Philippines or in
No,
Canada?
in Toronto.
Okay. Wow. That's quite a change. That's quite a turnaround. So, what helped her to get to that point? Was it just getting her credit reduced and the monthly payments reduced?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know exactly what they did with their file, but it's basically like budgeting, cutting down because people don't realize what kind of impulse purchases or like where they like kind of like waste their little extra money. So it's just really, really being like conscious of like where the spending was going. And then, like I said, like deciding how you're gonna pay down like what's your strategy? Because once you have a strategy and a plan, it's okay. They say like every risk is just a miscalculated strategy, right?
Right.
So so you just, they sat down with her, figured out what the credit card situation was, what her income is, and then made a plan and then told her, whenever you get paid, you just slip a little 50 into the savings account and like you won't even miss it. And she did that. And like within a year, imagine within 3 months, somebody can turn their life around. You know what I mean?
Yes. And really, it doesn't. I think a lot of people think that it takes a huge amount of time to change your life. But really, how long does it take to change your life? 1 second. It
Mm-hmm.
just takes you drawing a line in the sand and stepping over it and deciding, okay, this is what I want. These are the things I want to change, and figuring out the steps that it takes to do that, and then putting the plan in place.
Yeah.
That is a truly inspirational story. It's so good to hear that that lady was able to make that change and get the guidance and coaching that she needed in order for her to make that change. So, Kathya, I want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And thank you for what you do for your clients as well. Because when one person just is living debt free, it affects all of us, it affects everyone, right? It
Mhm.
affects our economy as a whole. So, to get in touch with Kathya, please visit the contact information that's posted in the description below. And Kathya, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome.